Hey gamers, I'm the Bad Gamer, and we're back with another Why This Class is Awesome. Today I just kind of want to get into it. Today I just want to get in and just make a shorter form video, or at least like cut a lot of the chaff. Though I do want to say before we get started, this is not an instruction video. This is not a video for you to find out all of the tiny mechanics of how to play the class. This is a video to get you hyped for playing Barbarian and to give some tips and tricks on some of their favorite features that I really enjoy. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get on with the video. And today, we're going to be talking about the Barbarian. The Barbarian is a wonderful class, especially because they get the most HP than any other class on average. Now, given, like con bonuses, a warrior who invests at least 2 points in con to a barbarian who invests 0 in con obviously is going to have the same amount of HP as that barbarian does. But the most healthy barbarian will have more HP than any other class just because they start out with a 12 HP per level, which is big. And as you level up, that gap just grows and grows and grows compared to some of your other compatriots. Eventually, you just start having boss HP, and that's really awesome. Rage is an absolutely great feature. I try to throw it on to as many of my characters as possible that do mostly like melee stuff, just because it's really good. You get temp HP equal to your level plus con modifier, which is really solid. It's going to protect you from like 1 or 2 hits at the level you're at. It scales pretty well. Not only that, but you do extra damage whenever you hit. Even if you're taking this as another class, as long as your weapon isn't agile finesse, well, even if they are agile or finesse, you actually can add half the bonus. So you get either 2 damage or 1 damage to all your attacks when you're raging, which is really good. All this costs just 1 AC and the inability to use concentrate actions, which may mess up your character build. So you want to be very careful with that. Concentrate is used in a lot of different actions, but if you're using just mostly melee attacks, or if you're getting into a more scary part of a fight and you just need that extra staying power and that extra hitting power to get through it, Rage is a great feature, and Barbarians just get it at base. Absolutely amazing. Deny advantage is pretty good. If the enemy is your level or lower, they cannot benefit from making you flat-footed. So it's really good. They can still give that benefit. They can flank you with another enemy that would, actually get the benefits for flat-footed, but they can't. So your barbarian can wade into hordes of small enemies and not worry about losing even more AC while you're raging. It's really good. It also prevents enemies of your level who are either undetected or hidden from getting that bonus as well. It's actually a really solid feature, and it gives your barbarian even more staying power because enemies are less likely to hit and or crit you with it. Mighty Rage is a really good feature. It's one that I'm sad that you get it so late, but it really optimizes your barbarian even more. One of the most frustrating things about barbarian is that when you rage, you usually have to spend an action to do so. Well, once you get mighty rage, you don't have to do that anymore. You can use an action like Oversized Throw, where you pick up a medium or smaller sized object and chuck it at someone. As you're doing that, you can rage as a free action. It counts the rage before the action takes place, so you still get the benefits of your rage damage if you can apply it like Oversized Throw. If you get a rage thrower, obviously you can add the rage damage to your throw, as well as the fact that you can't use Oversized Throw unless you rage anyway. So it's a really, really good feature. I find it absolutely amazing, and it just makes your barbarian work really well. Devastator is a great capstone feature. It doesn't seem like a lot for like a level 19 ability, but when you think of it as just something that you just get for being level 19, you realize it's a really solid feature. You reduce any resistances a creature or object might have to physical damage by 10, which is a lot more likely at end levels, actually. A lot of creatures towards the end of the game have 10, 15, even like 20 resistance to like physical damage types. Your barbarian can just surpass that, meaning that even at late game, you're not suffering from those same kind of resistances that even the fighter might be really dealing with. there is a lot of instincts. They all do a lot of things. I'm just going to talk about my favorite instincts and just some of the things that they do. Just to get through it quickly, I do recommend you go to Archive Nethys and check out a lot of the rages. I think a lot of them are really good and a lot of fun. But like I said, this video would take forever if I sat down and told you all of them. So we're just going to get right into it. Dragon Instinct is amazing. It lets you do additional elemental damage type based on the type of dragon you pick when you pick the Dragon Instinct, which is really good. It does extra rage damage. It does the most extra rage damage at base. Like you do, I think what it is, like 6 at level 1. No, you do. It's not the most at base. It's second most, but it's really good. Because at base level, before you even get any of the higher rage abilities, rather than 2 damage, you do 4 damage. That damage is of the element of the dragon you pick. And has one of the highest rage damages, eventually getting up to a 16 extra damage. That's nuts. You're going to be hitting really hard. And the fact that your elemental damage will proc on some enemies will make you a complete threat to certain types of enemies. This does come at the cost that a lot of elements are just resisted or immune to compared to other types of damage. So there are going to be some enemies you might struggle with, but the Dragon Instinct has a lot of good feats to go with it. Dragon Instinct's really, really good. Fury Instinct is my personal favorite, and I'm a little biased on this one. I love the personal aesthetic of it. It's just your character has like a boiling rage or battle lust or something. It's not tied to any kind of culture. It's not tied to any kind of tradition. You don't have anathema, which is great because there's nothing you can do to essentially lose your rage features like some of the other barbarian instincts do. But on top of this, you actually get an additional feat at level 1, which is really good to make your character stacked early level to help with the early level grind, because sometimes the early levels can be really rough for low level characters, and this extra feat will go a long way to helping it better, make it better. And not only that, it's just more tools that your character gets to have. They also eventually get resistance to physical damage, or physical damage from weapons specifically, not unarmed attacks, which I find is really weird. It's a really weird stipulation that I think they should remove, but that doesn't matter. Some of the scariest enemies in this game use weapons anyway, so this resistance is going to be very applicable. And unlike the Dragon Instinct one, which is elemental based and which is a lot more niche, this one will come up a lot more often. Giant Instinct is really good for a lot of reasons. One, giants have very interesting lore in both Pathfinder and D&D lore. Like, giants are very actually interesting. And from a narrative perspective, it's a very interesting instinct, but the Giant Instinct Barbarian can start the game off with a weapon of a size larger than they can normally wield. So they can have the giant, well, the large anyway, like two-handed sword. It's really silly. It's really kind of zany, but it does give them the most base damage, giving them a +6 rage damage rather than +2 at early levels. At level 1, which is really good. You just become Clumsy 1, which does stack with the innate penalty you get from the rage anyway. So you actually have less AC than other characters when you're wielding this massive weapon. But you hit like a truck, and it's really good. You even get feats specific to the Giant Instinct that makes your character larger and larger and hit harder and harder. It's such a good feat, and it just, if you want to become like a monster of whatever ancestry you pick, this is the way to go, because you will be massive. You will hit for a bunch of damage, and their rage damage and like towards the end gets up to +18 additional damage. It's really crazy. All right, we're making good time on this video, so let's go ahead and get into the feats. There are a lot of feats, and Barbarian kind of has a weird mix of feats where they don't have as many attack feats as you would expect them to have. In fact, they don't even compare to something like Fighter. Instead, Barbarian gets a lot of feats that either give them more mobility or more survivability. Which I think is to balance out the fact that Barbarians on hit do way more damage than most other characters. And even they're not as accurate as like a fighter may be, that doesn't matter when they do like 3 times as much damage on a single hit. It's Barbarians are really, really good. Well, let's get into their feats, shall we? Moment Clarity is a really good one. If you want a Barbarian that has a lot more options than standard, if you want to grab this feat as a part of like an archetype dedication so that you can get that rage benefit while also doing some of your other actions, it's a really good one. It just gives you a lot more options on your turn, and it makes you think about more. So if you like thinking when you're playing the game, Moment of Clarity is a really good feat. But I think for most people who just want to smash things, it's not one I would necessarily recommend. Acute Scent is a really good feat. It's a good feat, and it has a lot of feats that come after it that are amazing as well. It's as long as your character has either the Acute Vision feat from, also the level 1 Barbarian, or no, well, not also, but it's a level 1 Barbarian feat, or they have Dark Vision innately, which some ancestries do. You can pick this one up and it gives you an imprecise scent. Now, there's not a lot of ways to get imprecise scent or senses in the game in general. This one's really good. As long as the enemy is one that would emit odors, which is most living creatures, even some machines and constructs, your character will always know where they are as long as they're within 30 feet. They can never be undetected from them.
Get your nose ready, Logan.
Meaning that they can't necessarily get the bonuses. They always know exactly where they are, so your Barbarian always gets the chance to hit them. But not only that, with later feats like Supernatural Sense, it is really good because not only do you know where that creature is, but with Supernatural Senses, you can actually reduce the penalty to hit it. Normally, when a creature is concealed, you have to roll a 5 or higher on a flat check to hit them. With this, it's only a 3. That means that you only have a 15% chance of missing the enemy, which is a lot better than a 25% chance. On top of that, it makes those enemies that are hidden go from an 11 to a 9. So that it actually buffs your chance to hit them from being less than 50% to over 50%.
I'll take a smell see.
It's really good, and it makes it so that no enemies can get away with from your Barbarian, as long as they kind of have a smell to them. It doesn't have to be a bad smell, but as long as you can smell them, like the Wolverine, like I can smell their fear. Like your Barbarian is exactly like that.
Smells like fear.
I did mention this feat earlier. Oversized Throw is actually a really fun feat. You can pick up a table. You can just break a stone out of the ground and chuck it at someone. It's a really good feat. It's very aesthetic, and it's right for all kinds of shenanigans of things that you can throw at enemies, things that might be on hand. I'm sure there's ways that you're going to give your DM a headache with this feat, but I don't care. It's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of fun things. The fun thing about this one, though, is that this item that you're throwing does not count as necessarily an improvised weapon. It counts for your character as a simple weapon, and it counts as a ranged thrown attack as per normal. So any feats that you get that affect thrown weapons and or simple weapons also affect random stones that you can chuck with this feat. I think that's amazing. I'm sure, I haven't done a lot of research into it, but I'm absolutely sure there's some fun feat combinations out there to make Oversized Throw like a really stupid feat, like maybe ricocheting boulders off of people or something. Man, there's some really interesting things with it that I would love to see your builds in the comments below about it. But if you also have Raging Thrower, which is another feat, you can add your rage damage to the thrown item, which is really good, especially because this does, I think, a D8 or a D10 bludgeoning damage, and it increases as you level up automatically. So you can, it stays relevant later in the game. It's really good. It's a really good feature, and I think there's a lot of fun to be had with it. Renewed Vigor is actually my favorite feat from Barbarian, simply for the fact that it makes you into a Juggernaut. And what I mean by that is you spend an action, your character takes in a breath, shakes off the wear and tear of combat, gains temporary hit points equal to half your level plus con, which is really good, especially by the time you get Renewed Vigor, which I think is like level 8. That still means that you're probably going to be getting like 8 HP back when you do it as an action. You can do this every round. It doesn't stack, of course, but if you use it and they remove your temp HP and you use it again, you just gain 16 HP in that fight, essentially. Renewed Vigor is really good. It makes you a really stalwart juggernaut. And honestly, if you're up in the face of the enemy anyway, and you're using your first 2 actions to hit, smash, do whatever to them, Renewed Vigor is a great 3rd action to just increase your staying power. And further increasing the Barbarians' already monumental amount of HP. The last speed we're going to talk about today is going to be a favorite one just because it's aesthetic and it's really fun. It's Thrash. You pick an enemy up and you just start bashing them into things. There's so many ways you can do this. You can do that anime thing where you take a character's head and grind it on a wall.
What is it?
There's all kinds of really fun things you can do with this aesthetically, but mechanically it's also good. As long as you have an enemy grabbed, you use an action to do your strength plus your weapon specialization damage plus your rage damage on a basic fortitude saving throw. Thrash is really dumb when you play like a giant instinct barbarian, because you do so much damage with your rage damage. As an action, you just impose damage. And like, it's against your class DC, which is not necessarily going to be super high, but it means that they're going to be taking half the damage anyway, which is guaranteed damage. And not only that, the enemy is grabbed, so you're still giving that benefit to your allies that they're going to be flat-footed because they're grabbed. And you're going to be doing extra damage on top of it. It's very aesthetic. It's really good. And it's every action. There's no limit. It's not a flourish. So you can grab an enemy with your first action and thrash him around with 2 other actions.
I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that.
So if you start off round off holding on to an enemy, you can thrash them 2 times, 3 times. And if you're hasted, you can then strike them with the last action at your full attack without any attack penalty, without any map. That's really good. Barbarians are a lot of fun, and holy crap, they're just a really, really fun. If you don't want to think while you play the game, they're absolutely amazing. You just go in, you do tons of damage, you can take tons of damage. If you're into that power fantasy of being an unstoppable juggernaut, a true titan on the battlefield, Barbarian is for you. But with that, we're going to go ahead and end this video for today. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please like and or follow. Sorry, I'm so used to streaming. Please subscribe it and give it a thumbs up if you really liked it. It really helps me a lot. The channel's going really far. We're growing really fast, and every one of you who does this really is going to make this channel bigger and bigger. And the bigger the channel gets, the more content and the more types of things you guys are going to see from us, which I think is really amazing. As well as all the live play content. If you haven't seen it already, check out some of our live play to see your average person's D&D game, because as good as a DM as I am, I really want to show off what your standard expectation for a game is, and also maybe you can pick up some things about how to play or run in a game. But with that, thank you all so much for being here. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck to me, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.